German lender Deutsche Bank is no stranger to scandal, paying more than $10 billion in fines and settlements over the last decade for everything from dodgy mortgage-backed securities to money laundering. But the bank has supposedly cleaned house. Now, a trove of leaked files sheds new light on past transactions and raises the possibility of new scrutiny from regulators.
For years, customers from Russia and other former Soviet states funneled money into the Western financial system via Deutsche Bank. The so-called mirror trade scheme unraveled in 2015. The bank later paid a settlement of more than $600 million.
Deutsche Bank was found to have been engaging in a variety of suspect trades involving as much as $10 billion. The bank didn't seem to be a victim. They seemed to be a participant in these mirror trades.
Back then, Deutsche Bank promised to clean up its act. Now, U.S. financial documents reveal that the bank itself estimated internally that the suspicious trades amounted to $16 billion, and that it could have still been involved in the dealings until 2017. That is, long after the scandal had come to light. According to the U.S. documents, Russian criminals and a money launderer for a terrorist group were among the customers involved. They are all believed to have laundered money at the Moscow branch of Deutsche Bank. A spokesman points out that the bank completely withdrew its investment business in Russia in 2016 and has become a different bank altogether. We've increased the anti-money laundering department from 600 to more than 1,500 people. We've strengthened the systems, and this is an ongoing process. A consequence of the failed control mechanisms prior to 2015, also in the internal auditing department. Christian Sewing was its head until the end of 2014. Now he's Deutsche Bank's CEO. His former department had audited the Russian deals, but never noticed the suspicious transactions. But a later external investigation revealed serious shortcomings. The current chief executive did not sign off on it back then. He also did not read it at that point in 2014, as there was no reason and no cause for him to do so. The bank does not view its current CEO as responsible.
All right, for more on this, let's go to our financial correspondent, Chelsea Delaney in Frankfurt. Chelsea, how are investors taking this so far?
It's been a major shock to the market today. We've seen Deutsche Bank stock fall over 8%, so a really dramatic decline. Deutsche Bank has sort of been on this road to reinvention over the past year, trying to put all of these scandals behind it, and this really puts it all back into perspective for investors that Deutsche Bank is still likely to face a lot more regulatory scrutiny going forward. They've paid some fines for some of this activity already, but today's data leak shows just how much more widespread the activity really was, and that likely could put more regulatory scrutiny on Deutsche Bank going forward.
All right, Deutsche Bank can't seem to get away from those scandals. Chelsea Delaney, there for us in Frankfurt. Thank you. Let's dive even deeper into this. I'm joined now by Lars Feld. He's chairman of the German Council of Economic Experts, and he's long studied tax evasion and its consequences. Lars, thank you very much for joining us. Why is the environment for money laundering seemingly so ripe in Europe, and especially from one of its major banks, Deutsche Bank?
Well, the environment for money laundering has changed across time, but it is still very easy for money launderers to avoid the regulatory channels and to succeed in laundering their money. Just because what you observe across time for many years now is a kind of regulatory spiral in which the money launderers always are a step ahead of the authorities.
At the same time, we're hearing about Deutsche Bank basically acknowledging that there are suspicious transactions and then going ahead with those transactions. That seems wrong. Or, I mean, what is the proper regulatory response from a major bank?
So first of all, banks, and also in this case Deutsche Bank, they must change a lot in order to adhere more properly with the regulatory requirements. But on the other hand, we cannot simply trust in banks finally doing what they ought to. There also must be a change in the regulatory requirement in order to be able to detect money laundering more decisively, and also to enforce the existing regulations more strongly.
Are you seeing or have you seen a commitment to enforcement on, for example, the German side?
Well, I think the commitment is there, but still changes need to be done when you think about Wirecard and other cases. But what we also need to find out is to what extent the European regulators, in particular in the case of the large banks, when you think about the regulatory possibilities of the European Central Bank, for example, to what extent this needs to be extended.
You mentioned Wirecard there, of course, the fintech here in Germany that made it to the DAX, that made it to the blue chip index, and then it turned out to have a massive hole in its balance sheet. Do you think these allegations against Deutsche Bank on top of Wirecard, what will that mean politically for Germany? Will that be more of a challenge or promote or prompt more of a conversation politically, or do you expect it to sort of, I don't know, to disappear over time?
Well, I don't think that it's going to disappear over time. There are already discussions launched by the Federal Finance Minister Olaf Scholz to lead to regulatory changes already in this year or next year. So finally, still in this legislative period. And also what needs to be done is to ask to what extent the regulator, in this case BaFin, is really up to date in enforcing the regulations.
All right, Lars Feld, he's chairman of the German Council of Economic Experts. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.